So people will start joining. Make this work. Okay. It's working. Hi, everyone. Just let you know you're all muted.
So only we get to talk, I guess. So Billy and William can't make up any stories then.
Hi, Willie. You get a shout out. You're that cool. You get a shout out, William. Let's see. Oh, this is going to be hard to monitor and let people in as we go. Hi, Elaine. Oh, you win with backgrounds. You have the coolest background.
Oh, Elaine, that really is a very cool background.
See, Dad, you should have brought your skull to be put behind you.
Elaine, mine's much smaller.
Remember, there's kids on this call. Okay, well, I'll let people join as they click the link, but we can start. So thank you for joining us for our first Q&A with Dr. Dino. Hopefully we'll be doing more of these. We got him on Zoom. He figured out technology, so there's nowhere else to put. We're figuring it out. So I have a bunch of questions that people have already submitted from before the call. I have a few questions that people have sent me. And if you have any other questions you would like to ask, you can submit them in the chat. Otherwise, we will start. Pretty much everyone on this call knows who I am. I am Lindsay. I am Dr. Dino's daughter, which is probably the coolest title I will ever have in my life. The person with the really weird outfit is Lori Dr. Dino. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Chris DeLore. I play a character, Dr. Dino, and I run the Dino Lab here in Rockledge, Florida, where we do a lot of really cool things, working with fossils and natural history items, and working with a great group of volunteers and educators, getting people excited about one of my passions, which is fossils and hands-on learning, and of course, dinosaurs, because we know they're the best. So.
Great, so we'll start out with an easy question. Why dinosaurs? When did this interest start for you?
Well, you know, for me, it started as a kid. It's like everybody, you know, a lot of kids love dinos. We're not even sure why. As an educator, we've tried to figure that out. Why do kids love dinos? And we really don't have a good answer. It's something that's been around for a long time. A lot of time kids grow out of that love of dinosaurs. They may still like them when they get older. Some of us who are lucky, we don't ever grow up. We still love the dinos just like we did when we were little kids. But that whole adventure of finding, exploring the past, to me, is something that I've always thought was amazing. And dinos, there's just something magical about them.
How old were you when you started loving dinosaurs?
I'm not, probably 5 or 6 years old. I'm not really sure. I don't remember that part of it as much. But I can remember as a child finding fossil shark teeth with my family down in Venice, and how exciting that was to realize this came from an animal that died millions of years ago. That was fascinating. And I loved taking people out fossil hunting where they get that experience, finding that first fossil, that first you know, little bone fragment. Or even, you know, recently it took a group out and had somebody find her first Tyrannosaurus tooth, and watching her become a 5-year-old child again, even though she was an adult, because that was a great experience.
Cool. And are you a paleontologist?
No, I'm actually what I would call a paleo educator. I am truly fascinated by the natural world, and I love, as an educator, taking people out to have real experiences with that. Is it a real experience, you know, working in a fossil site with field paleontologist? Is it an experience canoeing down the Peace River looking for fossils in the river? But being outside and having that, or even being inside. Fossil hunting in the Dino Lab is super exciting. We've had a little more time to work in the Dino Lab recently, I have, and just discovering some of the things that we didn't even realize we already had is a really neat experience. But I don't do it as an academic. I've met some amazing academic paleontologists. I do it as truly as something that I'm passionate about, and I love getting people excited about paleontology.
So you can't hold his word for fact for a lot of this. Okay, so how would you describe your job? What all do you do as Dr. Dino?
Well, I started doing the Dr. Dino character quite a few years ago. As at that time, I was the director of education at the Brevard Zoo, and a very intelligent, incredibly creative marketing director at the zoo, Andrea, came up with the idea of a character, Dr. Dino, sort of bridging the gap between sort of the science of the dinosaur paleontology and the public, working with animatronic dinos. That's the Billings Dinosaur Company has been an amazing group of people to work with, where they bring sort of dinos back to life, and using the Dr. Dino character, where I get to interact and talk with people and explore the world of the dinosaurs, what we're learning about them constantly. But I also spend a lot of time working either in the field out west with field paleontologists, bringing groups of individuals out there for that exploration, and doing stuff in the Dino Lab itself. We do a lot of educator workshops. At the moment, we're waiting for those to pick back up again, but we're trying to get out a lot of the fossil material and other stuff in the lab out to people, because that's what this, the job is all about, is really about the passion of natural history and hands-on experiences.
Okay, so you mentioned the Dino Lab a lot. For those of us that don't know what that is, can you explain what the Dino Lab is?
It's a tough one. The Dino Lab is where we, a group of us years back, really wanted to have a place that we could work on a lot of this natural history, fossils and modern bones, and a place where people could come to, they may not have a lot of background in it, but it didn't matter, because it was more about learning and working together and being around other people that are excited about natural history. And so we have this warehouse, I guess you'd call it, about 2,400 square feet. It's full of fossils. It's full of modern skeletons. We clean a lot of animals that pass away. We do the skeletons. We have 500,000 domesticated flesh-eating beetles at the Dino Lab. It's okay. They only eat dead things. So as long as you're not dead and stinky, you'll be okay. But they're a great way for us to work with modern bones that we can use then to compare to some of the fossil record.
Cool. And what other jobs have you had in the past?
I've done a lot. I was the education director at the Brevard Zoo for 23 and a half years. I was a middle school science teacher, worked at Busch Gardens in the education department. And I've done a lot of zoo consulting and working with, like I said, running fossil trips either out west or here in Florida, and just trying to expand the opportunities for myself, but for everyone else to get hands-on with fossils.
Awesome. So what are you working on right now?
Actually, I'm working on a pretty neat piece. Like I said, we've had some time to work in the fossil lab lately that we hadn't had, and pulled out a box that I had underneath the counter for about 5 years. And I knew it had some interesting little bones in it. Didn't realize what I had. What I've realized is I'm working on the skull of a juvenile hadrosaur. In this box, in multiple layers, wrapped up. It's been, the gentleman who collected this probably collected this 30, 40 years ago. And it had been wrapped up. It's in a lot of pieces. And one of the things we have to do, and which I find is kind of exciting to do, is really clean and then rebuild the past, rebuild the skull of this animal. As I'm slowly working it, I'm literally pulling out into pieces that we've soaked a little bit to get a little bit softer, to get some of the clays off. Once we're done, it's kind of hard to see that, but that is the part of a juvenile baby duck-billed dinosaur. It is a baby because, just to show you the comparison, that's the jaw of my little dinosaur, and that's the replica jaw of an adult hadrosaur. Obviously, this one's a lot smaller, which can tell us all about the past. So it's going to be a really neat one. The challenge with this is each little piece, and some of the pieces are really little. They have to be clean, have to be hard, and then we look for what's about that bone, what story can it tell us? Every fossil I have ever worked with has a story, and it's really kind of fascinating to find that. It's even more fascinating when somebody else finds it. Years ago, I had a young man in the lab that convinced us to look at a pathology on a Triceratops vertebrae that we've had for years. Never thought to look inside, and when we realized there was a broken bit of tooth in there that had been grown around, the story was this animal survived being bitten by a predatory dinosaur 66 million years ago. What an incredible story that is. And it's one that luckily he paid attention probably better than I was at the time, and we were able to figure that out. So as we go through this, a lot of different volunteers in the lab are working on these pieces, and we'll hopefully get them all back together again and have a really neat display for us to use in our education.
Well, you can keep on working.
I will keep on working. Hopefully won't break it. You'll get to see how the glue works. Like anyone who's ever worked on fossils, you'll realize things break, and it's okay. I have new volunteers that come to the Dino Lab, and they're all excited, but they're so worried about, oh, I don't want to touch it. I may break it. Luckily, I remind everybody, no matter what they break in the lab, I've broken a lot more. And that's the great thing about always having glue with you, because the glues can put it right back together again, and you even get to relearn how to put it back together again. So like with the piece here, I'm slowly taking some of the clay off of it by hand, because I'm trying to be really delicate, because we want to be able to save the teeth that are still inside the jaw there. That they're real fragile, so we've hardened them up with glues, and now we're going to slowly work it off. Neat thing about it is we are constantly learning stuff about our fossils and how to work with them. In fact, there's a young man on this call right now who did a science fair project on testing different glues. William was looking at the different glues to hold fossils together. And being an old person, I just assumed I already knew the answer. Luckily, Willie's research showed us that there might be another glue that we need to start working with. And having everybody working together is what makes all this stuff so much more exciting.
So we have some questions that people have submitted. Up first, Brent asked, what has been your favorite fossil you've ever found?
That's a tough one. I really do love the experience of being out looking and finding things. And about 2 years ago, on the end of a dinosaur expedition, and it was even it was the last day, last hour. In fact, I was late back to the vehicles, and everybody else in the team were not happy with me. But in that process of getting lost on the way back to the vehicle, I stumbled upon, for me, my first dino skeleton. To the point that we're not even sure what it is. It looks like it is a very complete specimen. The museum we work with, Two Medicine Dinosaur Center, spent all last summer working and recovering some of the skeleton. We took a group out at the end of September and helped them kind of close up the dig for the summer. The neat thing about it is a super complete specimen. We don't know it. It's probably just a very, very big hadrosaur, but a known species, but it's possibly even a new one. That was pretty exciting. At the same time, years ago, I had a chance to find a single tooth of a rhinoceros out in Nebraska in a site that really shouldn't have had them. And that was kind of an exciting one. That particular tooth went to the university, and knowing that I was able to sort of add something to our knowledge about that area's fossil history, that's an exciting experience.
Cool. And Miles, through his grandmother, asked, what different kinds of fossils have you found aside from dinosaurs?
A lot of them. I mean, here in Florida, we don't find the dino fossils. We do find some amazing stuff: shark teeth, and mammoth, and mastodon, tapir. And I've had a chance to find some really cool things. But I have to say, some of the fossils we found, it's been team effort. Working with a good friend of mine, Kevin, many years ago, digging up a complete tapir skull at the Lacey Shelf. It was unbelievable. Just as we uncovered more and more and realized he had found a fully intact skull of a tapir. Then Kevin and I drove that to Georgia to put it into the university collection with Bill Waugh, who was studying tapirs. And we actually was able to fill in a blank that he had. That was super exciting. It was incredible. And so I've done that one. And I've worked with older fossils in sites where we're looking for trilobites that are really old. And recently I had a chance to work in some of the red beds in Texas with a good friend of mine, Andre, looking at Permian fossils, Dimetrodon material, and realizing at one point that the area we had walked into, all the little white rocks that we had walked across weren't rocks. They were all bone fragments that had been eroded out of the hills. It was pretty stunning just to look out and see bone everywhere, fossil material that had been eroded out, and some really incredible things as we started collecting some of this material and trying to identify it. So I've been pretty lucky. I've had a chance to find some really cool fossils, and I've even found few fossils unexpectedly. One of my favorite fossils I ever found was a little Troodon claw that I found in a piece of matrix that I had literally thrown away 5 different times before I finally brought it back to Florida, and months later was working on it late at night and realized a little piece of bone that we thought was turtle. When the piece opened up, it was definitely not turtle. It was the complete claw of a little Troodon. That was pretty exciting. So I found a lot of different fossils, and I've been working with people who have found some amazing things over the years.
Have you been able to go on a fossil dig anywhere outside of the United States?
Not yet. I've done some work in other countries, in Denmark and in Belgium, working with zoos that have fossil material, but not necessarily doing any particular work there. In the sense of fossil work, it's more education with the fossil record. Most of all my fossil hunting time has been spent here in the U.S. because there are truly some amazing sites all over the country, and a lot of places that are looking for help working with some of the material.
Where are some of the sites in the U.S. that you've gone?
I've worked obviously here in Florida quite a bit, and I've done a lot of work in Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah, down in New Mexico a little bit, and I've done some stuff recently in Texas, which is just amazing. I'm working with some of the small museums like the Texas Through Time Museum in Hillsborough, Texas. It's an incredible museum, it's a small museum, but they are doing incredible things. And what's best about it is they're giving people an opportunity to be part of the science of paleontology, getting out there. And that's been exciting when we went and did some collecting on the Sulphur River, and being in a crystal clear river where you're pulling mosasaur vertebrae out the bottom. That's pretty exciting.
Okay, so we have time for one more question, and we will do more videos like this, so we'll get to everyone's questions. You guys submitted a lot. What is your favorite little known dinosaur fact?
Oh, that is a hard one. What is my favorite little known dinosaur fact? Well, I think one of them that it's kind of a neat one that most kids already know, a lot of us adults didn't know that, it's the fact that whenever I'm doing the Dr. Dino character, I usually have some adult who will raise their hand and say, so when did the dinos really go extinct, and how did they go extinct? And the great answer today is they didn't. And we now have pretty solid evidence and pretty good research showing that they didn't go extinct. We just changed their names to birds. That some of the avian dinos, that group kept living, survived the extinction event. The non-avian ones obviously did go extinct around 66 million years ago. And there's a lot of great research going into exactly why, some good ideas, some good theories, but it's one that is, what I love to remind people is the beauty of science is we'll never know for sure. We always will keep trying to learn more. And the more we develop, more things we find. I can remember for most of my professional career, when somebody would say, how do we know the colors of the dinosaurs? The answer had always been, we don't. We'll never will know them. And I was wrong. Through some incredible research, we do know the color of some dinos through the fossilized feather. And being able to see something that we thought we would never know, we now do know some of it, reminds me that you can't, especially in the world of paleontology, you can never say never.
Awesome, well, thank you. So we'll upload this video on YouTube. If any of your friends were not able to join us, we will do this again. I'll make a Facebook event for this, but I think you had one message you wanted to send.
Yeah. The one last thing we had wanted to point out there is one of the great things about the Dino Lab is it's all about giving people excitement in natural history. And at this time when there's a lot going on for all of us, we just want to put out there, if any of you know kids that are at home and looking for a way for them to learn more about and have a hands-on experience, send us their address and we'll send out some fossil material for them to have. It's a lot of it's mixed material from Morocco, but it's a great way and with some activities where the kids can go on a fossil hunt in their backyard. They can create little blocks of fossil matrix to dig real fossils and keep them, because we really do love getting people excited about fossils, but we really also want to help people who need just something to kind of get us excited right now.
Yeah, so we'll post the email in the Facebook group, so you can send us any address that you think a child would love to have those kits. we'll get them out as soon as possible, and we can't wait to see you for the next video. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.